what kind of conversations do you have internally, and perhaps how often do you have them about changing the tag or keeping it?
Yeah, it's I mean, that's a global brand, right? So there's the push at Nestle between the global groups and the local groups. But I think what that gives you is a very clear sandbox, and sandboxes aren't actually limiting. As an ex-creative person, I actually find that quite there's opportunity in a box. But when you have that power and it's still your job, then becomes making that relevant year after year, campaign after campaign, and staying consistent to that, but showing up ways that make sense for your brand in that line and delivering on that. We're going to talk about some of the work in a minute. But I don't think the choice is, I mean, you're a new person on the desk. People want to do new things. This goes back to new versus old. But the power of that, I think it's a gift to have a brand that has something so clear that you can still make relevant. Why would you turn your back on that, right? But I understand it. And I think we've just leaned in as an organization very clearly. And when you have that understanding about where your brand plays and more importantly, where it doesn't, it makes things not easy, but clearer, I would say. But that's
It does.
hard. That's hard work to keep doing that over and over again. It's not easy for sure.
And one thing that I've heard you mention before, is that it all starts and ends with the consumer and the decision making, inside a company to make sure that it's all, it all circles back to that.
Yeah.
That is, consumer first, people first mindset is something that many, many brands struggle with. How do you begin to just change the internal culture, if you will, so that people really begin to think people first instead of it's a great tasting chocolate, all about me?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And we can say, you have to live those values, right? If you're starting that has to go all the way through distribution, your supply chain, all those things. Those are not easy choices sometimes to make. But I think one of the things that we did probably over the last 4 or 5 years is, you get to the point where you're talking about a category, right? And your category set. We really made a concerted effort to look at demand spaces. They're not new, but really understanding the marketplace and consumers based on their needs and wants and desires and that sort of rich space. And then we mapped out our whole portfolio through category doors, but also our whole portfolio in Canada. And then that's really been transformational for businesses like confectionery, where we looked at our brands in a very different way through the demand space store, and we see where we have to win. We see where we might have an opportunity with consumers that we're not sort of filling a need, that we might have a right to play there. So that's been fundamental. And that starts with our MIS team, which is our insights and strategy team, through the marketers. And it's a common language now that we have across the organization when we talk about that. So that's really, really powerful. And I mean common language through finance, through supply chain and operations, so that we can have having that shared language and that sort of North Star is really important. And it has to be through the whole organization. It shouldn't just sit with, we're the keepers of it as marketers, but it has to flow through the whole organization. That I think has been, we're talking about that with our global CEO when he comes, very transformational for us looking at our portfolios and our business. Yeah.
That's great. And I love the term demand spaces. I mean, it really
Yeah.
true, I think, for a lot of different companies.